Actor Ezra Miller has been arrested for disorderly conduct and harassment.
Harvey's here.
Harvey is supporting
And you have raised money as well.
Clinton. Yes.
Concerned about a relationship you had with Jeffrey Epstein.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Hello and welcome to my video. Today we will be talking about how left-wing men aren't necessarily more pro-woman than right-wing men. Although this will be a video primarily criticizing left-wing men, I would like to add the disclaimer that right-wing men often aren't much better either. Right-wing men tend to be more obviously sexist. Left-wing sexism is a lot less obvious, hence why I'm making a video about it. Before I continue, I would also like to mention that the points made in this video pertain to left-wing versus right-wing values and less about individual men. For example, there are right-wing men who enjoy prostitution and left-wing men who harass women online with sexist messages. There are right-wing men who play victim, and there are left-wing men who act like ruthless capitalists. It is hard to judge the character of a man purely based on his political affiliation, and there are good and bad men on both sides of the political aisle. These are just generalizations, so chill the fuck out. We will start out with the most obvious reason and talk about less obvious ones later in the video. The most obvious reason why many left-wing men aren't actually pro-woman is because their reasons for being left-wing are disingenuous. Some of them just want female attention and a way to stand out against the other guys, but do not want to put in the work of becoming attractive. As someone who values honesty, I cannot stand when left-wing men are fake and performative. Some examples of leftist men who were caught lying about being pro-women are Harvey Weinstein, who helped raise millions of dollars for Democrats despite sexually assaulting many women. Bill Clinton, who was a Democratic president but had an affair with a White House intern. And Bill Gates, who's openly a Democrat but has had rumors of an affair on his ex-wife and allegedly has ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Some of these men will believe in left-wing ideas, but not because they genuinely care about the well-being of women around them. For example, there are left-wing men out there who are pro-abortion, but not because they believe in a woman's right to control her own body and life path. The reason why these left-wing men actually support abortion is because they want to be able to sleep around, partake in hookup culture, and be non-committal. They want to be able to lack sexual discipline with no consequences. The men in this video are in complete denial about how abortion allows men to avoid responsibility. I think you can be pro-choice, yet acknowledge this fact.
Whereas if you're paying child support and you actually pay it, it's going to be about $5,000 each year. So like 18 years of someone's life is over $90,000. So I think that is a significant financial responsibility, and it's way easier to just pay for a one-time abortion than to support the child. And
on this note, left-wing men support sex work not because they are against slut-shaming necessarily, but because they want the option to be able to buy sex, without having to put in the effort of courting a woman and treating her kindly and well enough for her to sleep with him.
Escort, no shame. Obviously, sex work is real work. I've had sex with not even escorts, but also straight. I've gone to a brothel, Artemis in Berlin, and had sex with the workers there. Yes.
Romancing a woman is often a very difficult task, as it should be. These men feel that they are entitled to sex with minimum effort, even if they are gross and no normal woman would ever sleep with them. Essentially, they are lazy, entitled, and see women as goods that can be bought. This not only applies to prostitution, but to porn as well. Left-wing men tend to not value commitment or having children. The majority of women do value commitment though, and many women, but not all, want the option of having children.
Look, I do want to get married someday. I mean, maybe not today, but I don't want to, I can't date somebody that won't. What's the point?
Definitely too much salt. I thought we were having fun.
I'm convinced that this non-committal situationship hookup culture was caused by left-wing men. Forget quote-unquote female 304s, there have been way more leftist men out there who enjoy promiscuity over romance and substance. Evolutionarily speaking, women favor commitment because if a pregnancy occurs, she needs the man to be emotionally attached enough to take care of her while pregnant. Pregnancy makes women physically vulnerable, whereas men do not have to face any physical consequences from pregnancy and have a higher chance of their genetics surviving if they sleep with a lot of women. The demand for meaningless sexual encounters is something that most women do not favor, and the majority of women are very unhappy with the rise of hookup culture. According to this article by The Guardian, 80% of women were happy to turn down casual sex, compared to only 40% of men. Furthermore, left-wing men will often co-opt feminist language for their own nefarious purposes. Men will use feminist words like sex positivity and anti-slut shaming in order to coerce otherwise unwilling women into sleeping with them. If these women reject the men sexually, some leftist men might call the women prudes or too conservative and reserved. An example of this kind of energy is found in movies like The Black Swan, where the male ballet coach is incredibly coercive, saying that the main character is too prude in her dancing. Left-wing men tend to be against traditional roles of strength, discipline, and competence. This is not a good thing for women.
It doesn't bother you that I could whip your ass in bowling, and in everything, and bench press you?
Oh my God, is that a threat or a promise?
Wouldn't you rather the men around you be strong and dependable? Weak men, weak people in general, cause misfortune. In fact, I think we should encourage women to be just as strong, disciplined, and competent as men. But encouraging these traits in women should not mean that we discourage these traits in men. If men become weak and incompetent, they end up as a burden on society. A burden in which women will most likely have to make up for. As the famed band TLC once said, "No scrubs." If you've ever scrolled down the anti-work subreddit, you'll know that there's a plethora of men who have no interest in making anything of themselves and would prefer to stay at home all day and do nothing, rather than work hard to contribute to the lives of their wives and children. These men tend to be leftists. I want you to watch this interview with one of the mods from r/antiwork.
Why do you like the idea of being home, not working, but still getting paid by corporate America?
So I think laziness is a virtue in a society where people constantly want you to be productive 24/7.
And what do you do, Doreen?
I'm a dog walker.
A dog walker. Okay.
Yes.
After this interview, people were leaving the subreddit en masse because nobody wanted to be associated with this loser mod who came off as a weirdo and was too lazy to properly prepare for an interview. But consider for a moment, if men are no longer willing to protect women and contribute financially, how in the world are they helping women? By being emotional support? Women are way better at emotional support than men. So if a woman needs emotional support, wouldn't it be more effective to go to her female friends? What good are men for then? Furthermore, if men end up relying on women financially, this puts an unfair amount of work on the woman. After all, pregnancy and infant care are arduous tasks, and there's no way to split the effort exactly proportionally when it comes to pregnancy. The woman will always do way more work when it comes to this. Men need to do something to balance things out, otherwise this is unfair. Left-wing men sometimes tend to think of themselves as victims for petty reasons, rather than taking responsibility for their lives. Liberal feminism tells men that they are oppressed for not being able to cry or have feelings or whatever. Meanwhile, women in many countries are not even allowed an education. Men complaining about their mental health as a result of the patriarchy is petty. You made your bed, now go lie in it. Feminism should focus less on men's mental health and more on pressing issues like stopping male violence. Men of color sometimes act even more like victims.
No, but then there's also an issue of cultural appropriation. There's an issue of taking something that's very distinctly Asian in its identity and quote unquote making it better.
As an Asian woman, I've heard countless Asian men blame women for not liking them, for example on this men's rights forum. And because Asian men are men, emphasis on men, they have an entitlement that women do not. They feel entitled to female attention. This entitlement often leads to misogynistic behaviors. Just look at this Asian male rights incel forum on Reddit and you'll know what I mean. The past few images are examples of the resentment and entitlement that Asian men have. This subreddit in particular is known to have harassed prominent Asian women who date out of their race. For example, Constance Wu and Sunisa Lee. Hate to break it to you, but if women don't like you, that's your fault, not theirs. No ethnicity of man is entitled to sex. This is not to say that real racism does not exist. People lose their lives to this sometimes. But Asian men complaining about not being able to score women is incredibly petty, and I don't care about their complaints about this, and neither should you. Left-wing men will excuse and be okay with misogynistic practices in other cultures because it would be quote-unquote racist and intolerant to disagree with the practices of another culture. Yet women in some countries must cover every inch of their bodies, are forced into marriage at a young age, and aren't allowed proper education. Before I close this video, I also want to highlight a few things that right-wing men do that are anti-women. Again, this list won't be as extensive because right-wing sexism is way more obvious to spot. But just because I make a video against left-wing men doesn't mean I support right-wing men that much either. Right-wing men typically want women to be submissive and without their own careers. I'm going to use Reddit again as an example because this site actually has some great examples of why women should be wary of leaning too much to the right as well. If you don't already know, the red pill/pickup artist movement is a far-right movement that more or less thinks that women are inherently submissive and weak. If you look at subreddits like Red Pill Women, all the women there are pushovers who are afraid to advocate for themselves in their romantic relationships. To these women, the concept of negotiation with men or having a backbone is non-existent. This is not a healthy way of living and the reason why I am an advocate for moderate politics. Look at this forum. This is literally a male worship forum. You think you know pick-me's? You do not know pick-me's until you've gone through the top posts of all time in r/Red Pill Women. What the fuck is this post about? Fat acceptance equals less competition? This is so shameless. In closing, although left-wing men might seem more pro-women at first glance, if you look a little deeper, they can be even worse than right-wing men in some cases. It's important to hold all men accountable for their sexism regardless of their political affiliation. No matter their political beliefs, all men are equally capable of sexism, and women need to be more vigilant when it comes to this. Just because a guy comes off as woke and quote-unquote non-judgmental does not make him a man of good character. I think we should, as a class, evaluate men based on their actions rather than their words. Because I'm not technically on the left, many people will assume that I center men in my life, but actually no, I just spent an entire video trashing men of all political affiliations, so you are not allowed to say this anymore. I am relatively new to making video essays on YouTube, but I plan to make more soon and consistently. If you enjoyed this video, please consider following me on Twitch as well. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.